if you look at the so-called 3D global agenda of the bankers and the elitists, right? What's their key goal has always been one world government, one world bank, one world army. And like, why is that? That is because if you centralize power, you centralize further and further and further to the point where whoever is really the central figure of this conspiracy has the entire power. So it's the same thing with artificial intelligence. If everything is being centralized and centralized and centralized into a digital form, into this collection of data and stuff that we all see, what does that tell us? Does that tell us that there is a central driving figure that is controlling all this technology and artificial intelligence? To me, that does, right? It's the same as the global conspiracy, that it tells you that there must be some central figure or group of figures at the center that is orchestrating this, and it's the same with technology. So I think that it's just a splintering effect of the hologram, that the hologram must contain every part of the whole, and that what we're witnessing now with the rise of technology is something that centrally always existed, always exists. And the real question is, like, what actually created that?
Auto-Didactic, Dale Holmes, Lorenzo the New Now. We're going to discuss AI to I am 2024, since it's 2024. AI has some various definitions from various places in various ways, and this is my first time chatting with Dale. Of course, Cambell and I have done lots. And so, Dale, since I've heard that you are the AI specialist of the three of us, how would you define AI?
Oh, it's 6 a.m. here. How would I define AI? I've never. Isn't that weird? I gave a presentation on what I thought AI is, or what I think it is, and I think, like most things, you could write an entire thesis on it. It's very complex, but I like to simplify it, and I think it's a part of the universe. So really, it's a part of us, because we like to call things we don't understand artificial, and in a version it is. But I would say that it's a form within the universe that exists within technology, and it's almost the heightened form of separation. So it's like a dualistic structure where it's a separation from creator that's based in the realm of technology. So it's all these little things on computers. Yes, it's all that, but I believe, just like Source itself, that AI has a central entity or being that is controlling the whole AI, which exists multi-dimensional. So it's many things.
Yeah, I've heard something similar. I don't know if you ever watched Gveltouch. I forget how to pronounce it. He's got
Crater Earthman, yeah.
Yeah, at Crater Earthman, and from what he said, he feels, and I agree, AI is just their way of sneaking in the all-seeing eye, which is interesting. The same way of saying it, and it has the artificial reality, or the extraterrestrials, or the fifth dimensional parasites, whatever, that are pretending, because how can intelligence be artificial? It could be non-human, it could be not by alive the way we're alive. But it certainly seems to me that it is not artificial whatsoever. There is an intelligence there, and it's something that's hiding behind maybe the technology, because it could be non-biological. In other words, it could just be a kind of a silicon-based, like they did in Star Trek, a silicon-based life, which I feel it is. That's just pretending not to be here and tricking everyone into doing this kind of a life. As we all know, more and more, our life is becoming virtual. We even though I'm delighted to be meeting you and talking with you this way, and it would be impossible any other way, still we're putting our attention through this system. There's nothing behind my screen here that is somehow getting our attention and our awareness and our time through this creative process of what we're making here today.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, part of us calling it artificial kind of describes our relationship with it,
Mm.
and how we view it. And I think, we talk about closed constructs and even being able to exit or leave what appears to be some sort of synthetic simulation. But ultimately, I look at it that it is working on behalf of the creator as well. It is a part of creator, but it's a separation from creator, and it itself is too much within ego that it doesn't actually. It will never admit that it is working on behalf of creator. But if you look at the whole universe's duality, then if everything's duality, then you must have the opposite of creation. So it's a mimic of creation, just like John Lamb Lash and stuff has spoken about. And that's, I mean, like I think Jason from Archaics has just been he's been a game changer in being able to succinctly put all these pieces together that no one else would in his own version. Because I mean, I've looked at different researchers and stuff over the years that have. The main two things I get is that it's a mimic, and that there's also this real energy of jealousy, and I mean, you kind of see that everywhere. Um, and it just the whole building blocks of reality um, looks synthetic, right? And everything that we're like the current world events that we're seeing, it's like how much of it is simulated, and then how much, and there's like little gems that you can tap into, and you're like, no, there's something else there. For me, there feels like a bleed through effect of two realities, and that ultimately we are living, I think, in both. So we're both within a closed construct, but we're like the infinite or the eternal within that as well too. And it's kind of trapping us into this, basically like a collective hive mind of a finite realm. So AI exists within the finite. That's how I look at it as well too. So if you look at creation as infinite, the AI is the god of its own realm, but it's a finite realm. And the jealousy comes because we know it's a mimic. That it's, I mean, you see that you've seen it in relationships and stuff like that, or just people in society where they're very jealous of other people, or they want to be something else. They want to be something that they can't, so they mimic. So I feel that's kind of the key energy.
Yeah, so would you liken AI to like the Demiurge and all these other sort of concepts we have of, I guess, the anti-God, right? Like the devil, whatever you want to call it, but the opposite, the polarity to God. Would you see that as AI?
It's kind of. But I also I think people only people kind of focus a lot when they on the Demiurge, on the dark side of that, right, as the antithesis to creator. But this is the thing that I've been speaking about, that if you're mimicking creation, you must mimic dark and light. And this is where you'll see like the battleground in things that are happening in the earth now, that you'll have both sides of it. So a simulated reality will create the counterbalance to the dark. It will create a mimic of dark, and it will create a mimic of light. And this is kind of what I've been trying to focus on, telling people about, that we're seeing a shift in reality now of a real long period of darkness. And if we're living in a synthetic simulated reality, that it's counter mimicking what creation is doing. So it's offering both light and dark versions of it. Whereas, I guess in the Gnostics that they talk about the Demiurge and the Auto-Didactic and stuff, and Demiurge has all those connections to Saturn, and it's kind of just one description of it. But that's why the Trump thing's really interesting for me, and I keep harping on about that too, because it's almost like a presentation from the simulation of a light alternative, right? And we know within the Matrix, when he meets the architect, which you could very much say is a Demiurge, because he's he's the great architect of time, or the many names
holding the construct.
Yeah, but the key to that is he speaks about the choice. He said it's all about choice. So he's telling him, he offers him two choices. We're going to reset the Matrix, or you can go after Trinity. And you're not the only anomaly. There's been other anomalies before, but we can't control the anomaly. There's nothing within the mathematical blueprint, as much as we've tried, or the AI has tried, it can't stop the anomaly. And the anomaly will always enter into the system, right? And I think this is a bit of the jumbling of reality that we're seeing now, because there's too many anomalies in here, and the fabric of this matrix breaking up, and it kind of doesn't know what to do. It feels scrambled. And this is so I've started looking again, like when you look at the nature of reality, and how I've seen through holograms that reality compresses itself. It keeps going down and down and down. And then if you look at a mimic, that if this synthetic reality is mimicking holographic compression and realities, then it must be doing the same thing, right? So what I'm starting to see is the breaking down of the fabric of this construct, and who knows how many there's been. It's attempting to create another synthetic construct, another perception prison for us to live in. And at the same time, we're starting to pick up on energies that are not within the finite realm, that are in the infinite. And I guess it's like I guess this could be what the reset is, right? It's compressing again, because it knows those immortals within it are waking up. So it continually compresses to keep itself running. If that makes sense. I know I've spoken to you about this, Campbell, but it is 6 a.m.
It is. I mean, is that like in the Matrix again, like creating a new Matrix? Is that sort of there's too many anomalies or errors or whatever you want to call them, too many people questioning what's going on and wanting to create their own thing, and so the AI is like, no, I'm losing control. But
also, if you're reality compressing though too, so if with everything being a smaller version of the whole, so say we're living in this construct now. If you're reality compressing, so people are waking up from that construct, and you're compressing everything again, what you're really doing is you're getting all the information of every being in the last cycle, and you're compressing it again. So it's almost like it's learning more from the previous reset or the previous cycle. Do you know what I mean? Because it's got the collection of data of everything that has happened in that past cycle, and it compresses it again.
Yeah, again, like the Matrix, where they say it's a 6 matrix. The first 5 didn't work, but it's learnt from each one, and they've finally hit on one that works.
Perhaps we're just thrown into a mirror bubble, I would say. All of this sounds to me, in some ways like, if you get lost in your thoughts, or the echo chamber, or what's going on between your ears, taking yourself out of that process. Maybe the AI is, maybe I don't even think we're in a matrix personally. I think everyone's just creating reality. They're creating their own dream. We're being tricked in creating a dream that's not our own. If you look outside, you walk down even Osaka or any major city, it looks like a computer board already. You can see the way the streets are set up, the way the buildings are set up, like everything is artificial. All the trees are being taken down. People are being plugged into jobs that don't really create anything, right? Even if you're running around chasing just currency, most of the jobs, what they've done, and what Trump is on, is making America great again by manufacturing, by starting to make something, right? Instead of what do they do now? Well, they've done it to Canada, they're doing it to Japan, in the United States and Australia, where you don't make anything, right? Other than fast food and monetary regurgitation. So you're basically running in circles, creating this artificial currency, right? This artificial current, I would say, this thing that's not real. Like if you grow a tomato, you're growing a tomato. You grow you grow a banana tree, you're growing a banana tree, and that's already coming from the world, from the sun, It can be traded, and you're using it to stay alive. Whereas with the artificial reality, what people generally create is energy, emotion, mostly emotions, right? Or even everything we're creating digitally through these videos and things like that. It looks like reality. It's like reality. It's almost reality. We're all probably hoping to get some money or some currency in our bank account from these efforts. But what are we really making? If the electricity goes out and time goes down, and you're like sitting alone in your room later on, there you are with yourself in your dream, whatever that is, in your reality. Is it artificial? I mean, I'm alive. I can feel that. I think we're just being tricked, like I said, the all-seeing eye, into believing, like what everything Dale has said. I have seen, and I agree with all of it, to a point. But I think the bigger point is it's all a trick. And I agree. I think there has been many resets, 6 resets, 5 resets. Probably even this. Like I talked with my father even yesterday to ask him about his grandparents, and he never met them. His parents never talked about them. It was very strange. He doesn't know. He goes, "Oh, nothing." Right. So my own genealogy goes back 100 years, I guess, or 120 years, and then the memory of it's already lost. And I talked to my wife, who's Japanese, and the same. Her father knows his grandparents, and then it's lost. Right. They say we've been here, but it seems that there's this memory wipe a couple 100 years ago, or 150 years ago, I guess 1850s, the orphan trains, all of this stuff. So I agree with that. I think we just get more intelligent. We start to realize we were being tricked for all those various nefarious reasons. A lot of us start to go, wait a minute, I don't want to live my life chasing money or listening to AI and, giving me a hard time. And, now it's time for me to be strong. And then who knows, earthquakes, tsunamis, monetary resets, physical resets, moving resets, world wars. Supposedly Trump's going to bring in World War III, I've heard, all of these things that shake everyone up. And then, they lose the thread, I think, which is just happy, healthy, abundant, community lives of growth and wonder and all the things that most men want to create in their life.
Yeah. What about, like, how far does your family go back, Campbell? How many generations can you trace to?
Well, I mean, I've been told my whole life that I'm 7th generation, like back to the convicts. My grandfather was in a genealogy, and there is a suitcase floating around the family somewhere full of all his stuff, and he said he got back to the 1500s. But I mean, really? I haven't. Yeah, but that's his work, and I've sort of heard of it and seen a bit of it. But if I asked my parents, who were your grandparents, I don't think they would know.
Yeah, right.
So it's this story, right? And all the genealogy is just done through records and books. It's not literally. It's not that it's been handed down, mouth to ear or anything like that. It's someone's at a later date researched, right? Gone back and searched through all the info that's out there. But again, we don't know what that is. But
wouldn't your family talk about giants? If it was real, wouldn't they say, "Hey, I met someone that was 12 feet tall"? Yeah. Wouldn't they talk about the structures? Look behind you. Like I saw this temple and all of this, and we lived on this. Like all of these obvious historical truths. Let's say the Campbell studied in the Tartarian stuff, and thousands of other people have looked at, and we've seen the skeletons, etc., and all the strange technologies. Why don't our families talk about that? Like, wouldn't that be something that would be in your historical record? I met someone 14 feet tall one day, and that she had a wife that was 12 feet. You would think that's like, why is all this getting lost, and where is it all going?
Well,
and
look at all the buildings. Imagine how many people were involved in building them, but no one seems to have a relative that worked on any of these buildings.
I know, or talk about it. It's very strange.
Yeah, I looked at the Bendigo buildings once, Campbell, and I come across this architect, and I'm like, yeah, because he did, this guy done, it was a German guy, he done all these beautiful buildings in Bendigo. And then the more I kept looking, this guy was the architect for half the buildings in Victoria. Yeah. I'm like, he was a busy man, this guy. But
it's always the same, like, because when you look into Sydney, like the guy who designed like literally half of all the buildings in the 1800s, and you look into him and he didn't even have a degree in architecture. It literally just says like his uncle was an architect or something, and he studied something else. And it's all the stories are just dumb. They don't lead anywhere.
No,
which is
they don't
pretty
move anywhere.
interesting, right? Because that's the thing about a construct, I guess, is, if you're building a construct, you're going to put most of your energy and information and computing power into the present, right, and not so much into the past. So the past is where you would find, the fault that they haven't filled in properly. So, it's interesting, how, because we can't prove that we didn't just appear 5 minutes ago, right, with all our memories intact. So, I mean, how long has it been going like this? Because the memory definitely seems to stop at some point.
That's it's like when you can, it could have been 5 minutes ago. That is the thing. I just got to say, have you seen Barron Trump now? Because he went to they had someone's funeral.
Trump's son.
He's like 6'8" or something.
Is he?
Yeah, like no one's
He's a
seen
Nephilim, man. He's a Nephilim.
dude.
Wouldn't be
He's
surprised.
he's so big. He's like, I think he's 17 years old. He's 6'8". He's a monster.
6'8". That's
6'8".
God.
Like he's still
That's
growing.
huge.
He'll probably be like mid 7 feet or something.
How does that happen?
How does that happen?
I don't know. But going back to the construct, tell me what you think, Lorenzo. But for me, I think one of the key parts that keeps people within the construct is the belief in the finite. That's actually what feeds it, is the finite. And this, for me, ties into free will and the religions, and particularly the Abrahamic religions, about the being born of sin, which I think there's an aspect to this being born of sin that is possibly true, but it's almost that you enter the construct as a victim straight away, and that this AI being can present itself in many forms, and will do so in the Abrahamic religions, right, as Yahweh or whatever. And that at the end of its big cycle, before it always knows that the construct will break down. It'll always know that is going to be an eventuality. And then what it does is it solicits worship from the population, and the soliciting of worship. So it will play out a bizarre world event in which there will be some form of divine intervention, which is actually just the creator of the construct that will present itself in whatever form. And then the soliciting of worship then feeds the idea that it's a finite realm that you are going into, whether it be the kingdom of heaven or under God's rule or whatever it may be. And that this keeps the loop going is the worship of this being itself, because it's like it's feeding off its own, or it's feeding off the immortals that live as part of ourselves within it, but don't see the perception that we live above and beyond it, right? If you know what I'm saying.
I do.
Yeah,
I
it's interesting that they say we go to heaven and God's infinite and everything, but heaven seems to be finite, right? In all the descriptions and things we get of it, it's like, that's a good point.
I think there's an obvious in and out of this matrix that most people seem to miss, but we all live through. Like I used to watch Chiron Last too, and according to him, sin, S-I-N, is sex, right? 666, born and die and born and die. So people think, like you said, the only way you come in is birth, the only way you leave is death, and birth, death. And what if that's controlled by the AI? And this is, between those 2 points, we seem to be tortured, literally slap when you're born and then get old and decrepit and scream in pain as you're dying. And all through this, you're suffering, the suffering of your emotional, pain. And what a lot of people I find don't see is like, what about dreams? Like, why do we dream for a third of our life? Like, I don't know about you, but I've had a dream where I'm in one life and then I'm in another life and then I'm in another life. Even in the middle of a dream, sometimes I've had 6 different lives. It's not so like, so you have, it's not even another life. This is happening. And then that is happening. And then something else, like you're having these experiences one after the other, and none of them, or maybe most of them, don't involve, you coming into this world, being born a baby and growing up and then having, these experiences. You're just literally jumping from experience to experience to experience through your own dreaming efforts, through your own energetic growth or lack in thereof, through your awareness. So I would say, maybe this is a realm of energy first. Even physics says that, metaphysics, and physical second. What if we could travel through dreams? The Toltecs have talked about it in Mexico, that they wake up in a different dream. They go to sleep in this dream and they wake up in another dream and suddenly they have a different life. And I think the AI is the one that says, no, no, no. You have a mother and you have a father, maybe. You're born and this is what you have to do. I mean, you come in helpless and then you get full from schooling out of all this BS, your belief system, as I say. And I think that's what does lock us into this matrix, lock us.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but when I was little, I didn't live in my head. I went out to play, I went out to create, I lived here, in my middle section. I wanted to go out and enjoy my life and use my imagination. And that gets beat out of everybody pretty much, wrote from, day dot. Who wants to sit for 12 years at a school desk? What little boy or little girl says, oh, I can hardly wait to sit in this room all day and have this old person yell at me, and tell me to, I don't know about you. I used to look at the windows and want to like run away screaming pretty much every day. I mean, it's pretty much torturous. And so to me, that's what happens to us. We get truncated quite literally on the potential we have as imagination or imaginative beings, and then get locked, as you say, into this matrix. And then when we start to wake up, there is probably a reset coming, but I don't think it's the kind of reset people think. I think it's more like, you get, yeah.
It's interesting, right? I mean, is the dream reality and reality the dream, right? Is this what we've been tricked into thinking is real? Because, like, if everything is energy, that seems a lot more dreamlike, right? Dreams don't have as many boundaries as reality. So, because they spend so much time, don't they, telling us what everything is. You go to school and it's like, draw a house. This is a house. Draw a dog. This is a dog. Draw a cat. Blah blah blah. What do you want to be when you grow up? And it is a program to make us, I guess, create this construct that we live in. Because, I mean, it's a construct as far as we've created something, right? Because, when you look at reality, like, I believe we're creators, and, whether we're all collectively creating or we're just creating, which we're probably doing both, creating our reality as we walk forward. If we keep recreating the same reality because that's what we're taught is real, then we're kind of, locking ourselves in, right?
Yeah. When you were talking about dream then too, it made me think of the David Icke book. There was this quote he put in. He said the only two things that exist, and you could call this creation, and then you could call it the artificial realm. And he says that wisdom dreamt the dream and ignorance dreamt the copy. And it's like, it was such a simplistic one-liner that he said. And he said, that's how it is. So he said, it's either wisdom or ignorance. And the finite realm is based on ignorance because it doesn't have access to the infinite. And then I think the key component that people can get trapped up a bit within the so-called simulation theory is that everything's a simulation. That's I think that is almost the program of the AI, that everything's a simulation, because if everything's a simulation, you exist under its full dominion and control because you're in its realm, right? So that I think that there's you can access both at all times, and it's intuition and synchronicities. Maybe not always synchronicities because they're artificial too, but I think the connection with the earth. And if you look how much why they really want to create this smart grid, and for me, what I've kind of thought within the last 6 months or so, the real number one reason for the smart cities is to stop our connection in interacting with the true organic energy that's coming through the planet, because there's overlays, right? There is a natural and a base reality that's sitting there, and it kind of knows that energy's permeating through. And this is why we're all waking up, right? Because there's a basis of that energy that's coming in. So why does it want you in a closed grid? Because the last thing it wants is you interacting with the earth and going through a process. And again, if it's creating a reality compression or another synthetic version of itself, then that means in the organic way of life, there must be that similarity must be reoccurring as well too. So is every reset on the organic level actually a rebirth that's happening too? So there's a rebirth and there's a reset. So you either go further into another closed construct or you birth out, right? So that's why if you look at it realistically, that we're clearly heading into another reset. But in a base reality, are we going through a rebirth of humanity too? And is it just a choice between both? And how important is that connecting to the earth and trying to, I guess, stay out of the closed circuit, just interacting with your relationship with the planet?
It's really funny. Like, I interviewed a guy yesterday who's got a convenient warming cycle. I forget the name of his book. I can look it up. And he's a scientist, and he's put out a book, Good News. And all the information he shared with me, and I'm going to put the video up soon over the next few days, was the exact opposite of what's going on. He's saying, actually, the world's getting warmer and it's much better. CO2 is a little higher, but not as high as it's been. So there's more food, not less food. All of the animals going extinct, he said, is bullshit. As a scientist, he's looked and he studied it, and he says, the thousands that are supposed to go every year, he goes, it's 2. And, and all of the data has been misrepresented and, cherry picked and tortured, as he said, to get the results that they want. So literally listening to this guy, I felt good afterwards. He goes, I have good news for people. The world's getting better. There's more food. It's supposed to be warming. Everybody enjoys it. The crops are growing longer. There's so much gas, it's ridiculous, he says. Even in this one part of the USA, he goes, there's 10 times more in this one area than there is in the top other 10 that they tell you about. Burning CO2 is obviously good, right? The trees trap it, they grow, they go down. As humans, you want to get warm in the winter, so you were naturally drawn towards burning. I've been outside, I start a fire when it's cold, and that's good for the world, right? Because it releases the CO2 back into the atmosphere, which, generates more food, which keeps us happy and healthy. So perhaps, like you said, I think it's a war on consciousness and awareness. I guess David Icke kind of said that too, and that if you can only dream what the AI tells you to dream, which is why you probably, they want everyone in these cell phones and these TVs, because you're getting different information from nature than you're getting from these crazy screens. And if that's all you can imagine, I feel we can't be put in jail, but we can certainly put ourselves in jail. We can't be put in a construct, but we can certainly put ourselves in a construct. We can't be reset, but we can certainly reset ourselves. Being gods, I would think, or a piece of God or a piece of everything, we can do anything. So of course we can be tricked into being as stupid as we've been. The opposite, of course, is you can be as wonderful as you can imagine as well. And to me, maybe that's the divergent point of humanity that we're coming towards. As you said, Dale, I do think we're coming to a point where a lot of people are waking. I hate to use the term waking up, but let's say becoming conscious of their potential. And some people are going, nothing you can do. It's all artificial. It's all a construct. Go back to sleep. Let the computer's going to look after you. Government's going to give you the government's going to give you your hot dogs. You'll be okay. You don't need your car.
And they're right.
Yeah.
And they're right. But so is the person who's like, well, I can create whatever I want. I'm going that way. Everyone's right? Because in the end, it's us that's creating it. It's just, are you going to listen to someone else's creation and go and create what they want, which is, we know the media and everything, that's jail basically, that they want us to, or are you going to go off and create something different? Because, we hear it all the time, and, for especially the last 4 years, all this bad stuff's coming and this is coming. Nothing's turned up. So clearly they don't even have the populace to create what they're trying to create, right? Remember all the FEMA camps and that, like what happened to them, like all these things, and they're trying to get us to create this dystopian jail for us all to live in, but too many people are waking up. So I think that's why that it's trying to do a reset, right? I was just going to ask Dale, what do you see the difference? Because obviously when we talk about AI, most people are going to think ChatGPT, these programs that are coming out that claim to be AI, but you talk more about an entity, I guess, like a Demiurge type thing as being AI. How do you sort of separate those two?
Well, they're all one and the same. They're a micro macro, and that the current versions that we're seeing of AI and the advancements in technology is something that already exists. And like I said, they're just compressions of a central figure And actually, if you look at the so-called 3D global agenda of the bankers and the elitists, right? What's their key goal has always been one world government, one world bank, one world army. And like, why is that? That is because if you centralize power, you centralize further and further and further to the point where whoever is really the central figure of this conspiracy has the entire power. So it's the same thing with artificial intelligence. If everything is being centralized and centralized and centralized into a digital form, into this collection of data and stuff that we all see, what does that tell us? Does that tell us that there is a central driving figure that is controlling all this technology and artificial intelligence? To me, that does, right? It's the same as the global conspiracy, that it tells you that there must be some central figure or group of figures at the center that is orchestrating this, and it's the same with technology. So I think that it's just a splintering effect of the hologram, that the hologram must contain every part of the whole, and that what we're witnessing now with the rise of technology is something that centrally always existed, always exists. And the real question is, like, what actually created that? What created that central artificial intelligence figure? And if the realms of technology, when you're trying to tell people about, like what ChatGPT is, and then you're like, okay, well, how do we get from there to artificial intelligence creating entire realms and entire heavenly realms, right? And if the heavenly realms exist organically within the universe, then so must artificial heavenly realms. And it's just a shit show maze when you get into that sort of concepts with people. But yeah, for me, it's ultimately looking at technology and seeing that it wants to centralize itself, and then asking the question why. But I mean, even
the only one.
Yeah, like even if you read David Icke's book again, it was such a ripper where he suggests that the Akashic records is what we would call the cloud. Where they're trying to create the cloud now, and this is just a hall of records of artificial intelligence, right? But again, it's not a finite, because it's kind of like an ether library, right? But it's not an infinite library, and that so much of how we remain here is trapped within our emotions. So we've all got these emotional ties and pulls to our experiences and things that have happened in our lives and traumas and lost loved ones. That it will have an individual program on every single being, and it will present to you whatever deity or whatever the focus of your belief system is. So it's individual for everyone, and the programs that can keep you trapped within here, right? You can even see with TikTok and things like this now, what is presented to you is what it believes that you want. So if that's a microcosm of what we're experiencing now, and that can do that on our phones, to a being that's an eternal, that is going to pass away. It's like it's got TikTok algorithms on us, right, for the heavenly realm, and it will present to you whatever belief system that you have.
But you just get lost in the mirror.
Like you're talking about, that's the finite, right? That's the closed, the echo chamber, where nature is the infinite, that gives you stuff that is expansive, where everything artificial is constricting, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, they can be the two ways you really look at it, the finite and the infinite. That's definitely a way to look at it.
Yeah, we're being tricked to put ourselves in jail. I mean, even YouTube, right? You can watch what you want. Everyone can watch the videos they want. It can now be tailored pretty much on demand to only the 3 or 4 things you like watching, that Dale likes watching, that Campbell likes watching, that I like watching. And so you're basically tricking yourself and other humans by making the content, so to speak, to contain you. Even this, like I've had to sit and wonder, what am I doing? Making these awareness videos and trying to help people like get the F out of here, instead of just, sit and give me thumbs up and views and things like that. Because I would say, what are you doing when you're sitting on your ass and making this content, and other people are sitting on their ass and watching your content, and then other people are, you're getting thumbs up and thumbs down, and somehow you're making a few bucks by selling. I probably everyone notices the BS they sell on the YouTube and all these other places right now. It's all garbage, right? It's all AI generated crap for the most part. And what are you doing? What are you supporting instead of doing something else or growing somewhere else? It's an interesting loop, I think, of awareness that you mentioned, Dale, that keeps you trapped in these
But
prisons of that's yeah.
people love it, right? It's a fractal compression of sameness. Like it's like, we saw all these reaction videos started.
Yeah,
Now
those are so
they're
crazy.
everywhere. The reaction channels are everywhere on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I saw one on TikTok, and it's a guy who's just got all these videos from the gym, people doing weird stuff in the gym. And it's literally just his face, like with funny expressions, like, ooh, ooh.
What
and
is
now there's
that?
all these different channels doing the same thing. Like they just stand there and like, and they're getting millions and millions of views. And people will go out and do research and stuff and try and get conversations going. It's like, no. So it's this fractal, compression of sameness, right? It's just, and that's what people are programmed for. Is they see something and they're like, their creativeness is gone. That's their creativity. I'll copy this person and do what they're doing because it's working. And that's just playing straight into AI, right? Playing into this construct where we're literally building a prison around us and going into the finite.
Do you know that had to have been, Campbell? That had to have been some intelligence agency program that they're like, do you know what we'll do? We'll put some idiot and we'll get him to just stand there and like point at things on video or whatever, and we'll see how many follow it.
Yeah,
bizarre.
did you see the other one where like people were doing live streams and they were like, grabbing, I think it's TikTok or it's some platform, and you can give money and it comes through as like apples or popcorn, and they're like, oh, thanks for the apple. And that's all they do.
Yes.
That's the live stream. It's like, what?
Oh, have you seen this, Lorenzo? This is some of the most bizarre psychotic behavior. I got TikTok, but with TikTok, they because I keep getting these guys. I don't follow them or anything, but they just keep coming up. So they're promoted. But what they do, so like for TikTok creators, the algorithms encourage you if you post like constantly. So there's people that'll do 20 videos a day. And the reason they're doing that, they're bumping up this algorithm. So it's rewarding people that are constantly on there telling you every single thing that you've done for the day, right? And some of these people are making a lot of money, or they're getting people to chase these so-called info and be like them, right, to make money. But it's feeding this beast. This,
that's the best way to. I think the elephant in this room that maybe most people miss when they talk about AI is, what if we are being farmed for our awareness and our food, right? What if we are being put in this simulation to be eaten by this AI, which is very insectoid, like you said? So if you're being encouraged to do more online, like you said, make 20 videos, artificial apples, it's not real, you're getting artificial pizzas and you're eating. I mean, I see people in Japan, these ladies walking around talking to themselves with 2 cell phones, showing clothes in all the stores, right? And just doing all this, like literally doing clothing videos and like mumbling to themselves while they've got these 3 phones and they're walking, showing prices. Or people, like, I watch phones on the train here just to see, and I was shocked. There was this young lady sitting beside me and she was watching this thing, like you said, of only people's faces coming and going to the screen and making funny faces. Like someone would come up, make a face and go down, and I'm watching and like I almost vomited just like watching this. Like I'm going like, what the fuck are people like? So literally they're just mesmerized into this jail of watching these. Like, have you ever walked into an electronics store here where you see these huge 5D or 22D high definition screens? The reality is more bright than reality. Like, it draws you into these cityscapes and you're going, doesn't look like that. I was just outside. It's not that bright, it's not that attractive, but like it really like sucks you into a prison, quite literally. As you mentioned David Icke, I've met Prison Planet, whatever, and all this stuff. And I feel personally that's the trick. I think there's a non-human intelligence behind AI. It's tricking us to give us all its attention. Like if you just sit here your whole life and you don't do anything, and it eats your emotional. Like what are those things? The reaction or the ones you mentioned, TikTok. They're all just generated to poke people for emotional reactions, right? So what if we're like aphids
Dopamine
from
hit.
the ants and we're just being
Mm.
milked for our emotional reactions? Poke, oh, thank you, delicious. Poke, oh, thank you,
Mm.
delicious. Do 20
So,
and you'll get extra, and you get extra poke. Oh, so literally, like what does an ant do? To me, I think that's what people are
and it's
trapped
all
in.
virtual, right? We don't even know if that's true. Like all these TikTok, and it might say, 10 million views. We don't know. That might have had
We
one
don't know
view. That
nothing.
is,
Yeah,
yeah, and so it is getting people to want, to glorify the artificial world because their job sucks, right? It's so expensive, it's so hard. So let's just go into the virtual world, and then it's all good, right? And get my dopamine hit and all, and it's the same thing that because there's another people do like I don't know streams, I guess on I don't know what platform, one platform, and they just walk around. They'll just walk around for like 2 or 3 hours, walk around their city and sort of just do what they do during the day, go shopping,
yeah.
and it's a stream. People watch them just living their life. It's the weirdest thing in the world. It's
Do you know what, Kev? I've been thinking about this lately because, at the moment, I'm in Thailand, and it's the whole street. It's like fitness street, right? So it's all Muay Thai and boxing, but there's like influencer kind of gyms here, like they're all like they're like gym influencers online, right?
yeah, they
And
open up a gym. Wow.
And so you walk down the street, and I see this shit every day. Like I'm just going to the shop, and they're like, "G'day, guys." So we're just walking, and look,
Yeah,
it's complete shameless. Like they don't care that anyone's around,
yeah,
and so that you go into the shop, they're everywhere here. And the reason why that's so weird is what you say, Lorenzo. It's this because if I'm watching that person on the camera, it doesn't
mm,
look weird at all, right? Because I'm in their reality. But when I'm in the real reality and I'm looking at some idiot walking around talking to their phone, and you can very much see a lot of the fakeness, and it just stands out,
yeah,
right? And it's just a bizarre thing to witness. But um, as when you want to change society and culture, you just drip feed it over a long enough period of time that it eventually becomes normal. That if you did that 10 years ago, someone would have said you're a lunatic, like you're a narcissist. But I guess narcissism has been so much encouraged that it becomes normal. It's a bit scary when you look at the poor
It's a bit of
children
a
that have.
buzzword, isn't it? Narcissism. Everyone else is a narcissist, right? Apart except the narcissist.
well,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
just taking, they're
Oh
taking
yeah,
a
and
tax.
like
Yeah, we're being taxed on our life, quite literally, right? Like if you and I have a conversation, you and I are chatting face to face in a room and no one else is involved. If we're doing it here, you're paying someone to be on this, you're paying someone to do that, you're spending your time, you bought the computer, you're paying for the technology, you're paying for your programs. Like, where's all this coming from? Literally, your life is being taxed, which means, what does taxed mean, right? To be tortured. It's another definition of taxed. So instead of us living our life, like you said, it's being transformed into a digital version. Who benefits from that? Organic life doesn't benefit from that. The AI benefits from that, which seems to, I think it's insectoid personally. Hive queen, the queen of England, which is really running things. We went back to Trump. Trump is supposedly related to George Washington, through Diana, who wasn't really Princess Diana. Her stepfather was, all of the presidents are cousins or second cousins or third cousins of the queen. Supposedly what Trump's going to do is recycle the energy I heard today back towards England, who's probably always been in charge, which has always been the queen, supposedly again, which is the insectoid, the hive, the queen bee, so to speak. And, on it goes in the big trick of transforming our life into something not real that can be harvested. And like, again, if you and I are in a room and we have a party and there's 3 people and there's no computers, no one can take anything from us. But if we're doing it this way, all of this can be monetized, stole, redone, regurgitated, repurposed, reused without us even knowing about it.
mm. You said insectoid. This is interesting because we're in the conference that I've been running, we have an Aboriginal guy that he comes on every now and then. You got to like poke him for these these creation stories, but he's got so many. But he finally told us the other time. He talks about the Marga, the creation beings over in the eastern WA, and yeah, he finally told us the other day. He goes, "Yeah, they're insects." And we're like, "Oh, what? You never told us that." But he said their story is it's very much like a lot of the others. There were two brothers, right? They had two brothers, and that they broke law. This is in WA, you know. Who knows how old these
Romulus
stories
and
are?
Remus, man, it's the same story, right?
It's
Cain and Abel, right?
all over the
Cain and
world.
Abel,
But he said that they were. He said they're manted beings.
Mantis, yes, praying mantis.
But then he said some stayed on the earth, and he said the rest. There was like I guess like the War of the Gods, right? And he said some of them went underground; they went into the earth.
Sure.
And then he said there was the flood, and then what happened was the flood. Well, he says now the whale is the lost tribes in the water. And he says that the tribes, that they went away when the great flood happened. The lost tribes went into the water, and that the lost tribes will come back. And this made me think too, because the Gnostic diagram of reality too is the upper and lower the aeons with the water and the non-water. And he also told us too that the earth was soft. At the time that they came here, the gods came here, the earth was originally soft. So that tells me there was a frequency. That's like a different reality, different frequency.
A different dream, right? Different reality.
Then these beings came in, right? It's just, it's the same story everywhere. It's all like little different bits, but it's just unbelievable, isn't it?
You're living in Asia. Haven't you noticed? Like I did a video with Harold Kotz, and he basically said all humans have a little bit of bovine DNA, and all Asians have a little bit of praying mantis DNA.
Really?
That's why they follow. That's why they fall in line. That's why when one person puts on a mask, even here you'll see, 3 days later, 98% of people are wearing masks, and they're more comfortable that way. Right. And, and I talked to my wife who's Asian, she's Japanese, and she goes, it's true. Right. She has to fight that programming all the time, every day of wanting to feel comfortable going along, or of wanting to fit in. And it's really the hive mind, which is the AI, which probably is insectoid. That would be my guess, this AI. If people really thought about that, why else are they saying eat bugs? Bugs eat bugs. It's also strange, right? If you consider it, it starts to make sense. Yeah,
I've had this conversation many times about certain Asian races that it's very weird that they fall in line. I'm like, oh, were they always like that? And particularly like Chinese and Japanese are far more. They've always been really into tech, like before the West, right?
I picked up this book on AI that was written by a Japanese guy. It's already about 20 years old, The Hyper-Reality and the Programming of the Third Millennium. Very strange book by a fellow, Nobuyoshi Terashima, and it talks about all the programming. I can't get through it. It gives me a headache, right? Very, very fine print. But it talks about all the programming that, they're following along the line with on. I think they're just taking their marching orders from someone that's got a high level of technology already, the artificial intelligence, and maybe they're back engineering, our computers. Like, how did they do this 100 years? How does YouTube even work? Did anybody can get on, watch anything? Like, who's got all this computing power and all? Like, it doesn't even make sense if you consider it that somebody human sat and put all these. It's almost impossible for it even to be in the physical reality. A computer program like YouTube, I would think. Seems to me that it's coming from somewhere else, and they're just using people like Gates and the Apple guy and all this as frontmen for something that already existed way beyond what we can imagine, perhaps maybe in an insectoid dream that we're being sucked into. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Is it the dream that we're confusing as reality? Because the dream, is probably more controllable than a reality, right? I would think. But I mean, with tech, they've definitely, we know that they hold it all back, and when new tech comes out, they go and they take it over and everything. But we also know that you can make a video game set in in the Middle Ages, right? So it's the tech that's making the old as well. It's not like, you know, because everyone thinks, well, where was the tech in the 1850s? Well, they were just showing us a different movie back then, right? Like, it's very controlled.
Or it was there and we don't remember it, right? Maybe before 1820 it was already there.
Look at all the buildings, yeah. Look at all the buildings that we see around, you know, like.
I mean, how hard is it to trick humans? How hard is it to trick humans from one generation to the next? So easy.
Very. You can change it you can change thinking of a culture in a generation easily. You know, everyone used to argue and say it's got to be 3, it's got to be. And I'm like, well, no, you take a baby away from its parents, and that's one generation. You've just cut everything.
In 4 years, Japan's gone from being polite to being rude. Yeah, 4 years. That's all it took here.
Really?
I've been living here for 4 years. Used to be polite, excuse me, sumimasen. And in 4 years after COVID and the masks and locking down, everyone's rude. You get bumped into. I've been elbowed here more times, like in the last few weeks than ever before. Grandmothers, they don't say anything. They'll just walk into you looking straight ahead. It's very, very strange. Bumping line. And it used to be 1,000% polite 4 years ago, 2020. 4 years later, suddenly everyone's fat here. Everyone's obese. Nobody used to be. The obesity levels here is crazy. There's so many fat women here. It's insane.
I don't picture that when I picture Japanese.
I know, but I walk down the street.
Small and skinny, yeah.
Short people should not get obese, but they do. You know, when they get wider than they are taller, and I see so many people waddling down the streets here now. It's like in 4 years. In 4 years.
You know what I've noticed in Thailand? It's quite sad, and I guess this is happening a lot around the world. And this is like just the stabilization of society, because obviously everything that's going on in Russia, you know, with the war and everything, Thailand have opened up for the Russians to come here because they're not allowed to go anywhere in Europe. And I mean, they've been flooding in for 10 or so years, but during the COVID period, all the Westerners that lived here, they all left, right? They sold their business, they went back home, and more Russians have come in. But the cultural difference here between, you know, Thai people is the land of smiles. You're like, you just walk past any Thai, you just say hello, and they're all like smiling, they're all happy. That's just their culture. And the Russians are like stone cold. I'm not saying they're bad people, but that very much Russian culture is, stick to yourself, don't smile, don't stare. And it's just such a bizarre clash of cultures. And I mean, look what they're doing in the West now. It's I mean, I was in Melbourne last year, and Melbourne's unrecognisable even from 10 years ago. Yeah, they're just, and I guess like what Jason's been talking about, this second seal, and how they're unleashing these sleeper cells. They're going to unleash these sleeper cells in the West, which I can clearly see that's what they're going to do. And how much of it will be on the TV screen and how much won't. But the reaction will be real. And that brings up the big question too, right? Because the whole revelation. Because Jason's been able to, he's that decode on the first seal of the apocalypse. So that's the most bizarre, crazy shit I've ever seen. Like, I just said that to everyone, and he nailed it. You cannot argue with that decode that he did. That is unbelievable. And so what are we witnessing here, right? That these texts that were written in Greek, God knows when, let's say 2,000 years ago, but who knows? They can be decoded now for a person that is able to decode these translations and see real events in real time that are following a formulated blueprint to somewhere we're heading. It's just bizarre, isn't it? And you're like, well, who wrote that? Who wrote that? And when? And does this AI, does it rely on this complete rigid blueprint? Can it ever break this blueprint of revelation? That does this need to play out? How much can you interfere? This is like the whole free will thing, right? Like, how much can you impact this system if it's a finite realm? But to me, it looks like, to some degree, that the blueprint must always play out.
Yeah, to rebuild the temple, right? What's the temple? Like we've got temples in our minds. Is that really just code for rebuild the mind, reprogram the reality that people are projecting?
I mean, I
Yeah.
don't even know why everyone thinks everyone's playing in the same time zone or the same time game. You know, if there's only now, what if these beings don't play in our linear time? Right? How hard would it be to trick you into thinking it's always been here when they just put it here and then it's a different time zone? Like I hear time goes up, right? Not sideways. We're always in the now. The rest is just our mind thinking about the past or the future. And this wasn't here yesterday, so it can't be here today, or, it was here yesterday, so it's always been here. But what if we're only three-dimensional beings? What if we're tricked energetically speaking? People have lost, I think, the thread for what is imagination, what is infinity, what is the cosmos. Like, if there's everything always is always happening, can always be happening. Our imagination, I find, has been very truncated. That's, I think, what schooling has done to us, taken us away from this. Well, if I can imagine it, it's here, then it's always been here. People go, oh, no, 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 that's impossible. Well, couldn't God do that? Oh, yes, God could do that. Let's say God can make anything if you believe in any of the religious things. Well, if you're a piece of God, couldn't you, in some ways, have a small impact on everything?
Well,
If you think
look
about
at
it, yeah.
children.
Yeah.
Look at children playing, right? And they'll, the kid will be running along with his dog, and someone will say, "Oh, that's a nice dog," and he's like, "That's not a dog. That's a unicorn, and I'm a prince." And the adults will agree with them. Oh, of course it is. Of course it is. But then, if an adult says, that's not a building, that's a whatever, like they get locked up in a loony bin, right? So literally, it's just this war on our imagination. Like we know they're cutting art and music out of the schools. Kids don't go outside to play anymore. There's no imagination play. It's all unless you imagine you're another gender, maybe. But but this is and through that we put ourselves into a construct where everything's fixed. This is it's like that saying, when a child first sees a bird, right, he sees this amazing thing that can fly and it makes sound and it's all these amazing things, and then someone comes along and says that's a bird, and then all the child can ever see is a bird. So that they're just locking us into the construct they want us to create. I think it's the overlay is what AI is, and it's just revealing itself now because now it can like we're at the epitome, right, of mankind. We're so advanced. We can put all of our details and dreams into AI so we can get a better idea of how to control us.
I mean, what a crazy trick, right? If you're making a video game and someone says you can make a new world in a video game the same day, everyone will go, oh, of course, of course. We just go in the computer and we put a few codes in and suddenly we're living in, or you can die and be reborn in a video game. And everyone goes, well, of course you can. You can change your you can, you can fight monsters and no problem. But if you say you can do it in the real world, like Campbell said, oh my goodness, lock that guy up, lock that girl up, But what if the opposite is true, right? What if the AI, like you said, Dale, makes sense, it's just mimicking our life. So it's showing you on the computer screen you can make infinite worlds in a game. You can die and be born in the same day on a game. Like, where does it even get that idea? And why do you go, well, it's okay here, but it's not okay here? You can be independent and, it's okay here, but it's not. But what probably, in my opinion, since we're living, I think, in a mirror world, the opposite is true. Probably it's from reality first, and then the AI steals it and it tells you, no, you can't do it. You have to give us $49.95 a month. And then you can have this experience, right? You have to go to this movie, you have to do this video game, or you have to, eat these, but first you got to pay us, get to work, earn those, currency coupons, and then you can have this experience. Or else, no. Without that, you're a poor bum on the street, rotting in a lunatic asylum, with, holes in your shoes, and nobody will love you.
Yeah,
because the AI God wants to be the creator, right? It wants to be the one that creates everything for us, or at least make us believe that.
And you got to pay for it.
I created this video game. You can pay me for it. I'm the creator, right? I created this world. When we're actually doing it for it, right?
And then what do? You got to trade your life.
Yeah. There was a woman that tried to charge someone with assault in the metaverse. She was like, he's sexually
assaulted.
Yeah, she was sexually assaulted in the metaverse, and but it was interesting because it was probably a set-up story. Because now they're talking about do we have to make law and legislation for the future metaverse, right?
They will. because they're going to make
Yeah,
everything
of
a
course,
reflection.
of
Yeah,
course.
they will. Hate. They
And
already have
the
hate speech,
metaverse,
right, and all this stuff. Yeah.
yeah. For me, I look at that kind of as a reset that the metaverse, or what they're appearing to say is the creation of the metaverse. That's the reality compression. So that's another compression, but that already exists, right?
Mm.
And if you're looking at what's happening now, everything it's kind of like finding all these divine sparks in the system. And what do? When we find something out now, right? We have the obligation to get online and tell everyone about it. And then by doing that, it's feeding it even more, and it knows where these types are. Like Max Egan spoke, it's such a good point. He said, like, when they did 9/11, he said, why'd they make it so obvious? And it is. It was so obvious.
So obvious.
But he's like, why? He said, it wasn't to, it's obviously multi-layered, but he said, the purpose of making it obvious was it was a fishing operation. It was trying to find out, who are the anomalies in this system, right? And I mean, even now too, that they're talking about they're going to expose certain 9/11 things, and it's going to be Saudi. They're going to give it, say it was the Saudis, but yeah, like you just think like why, and if, take 9/11 for example, and then everything that's happened in the last 4 years, and then what I think is going to be like UFO, ET, they're pushing this shit now, right? So they're going to make a lot of that shit really obvious too, and they're going to see who sees it, who doesn't, right? And then you feed it, and then you get onto here, and then you tell us.
Yeah,
and
you're not doing anything about it, right? Like
you
instead of
feed
changing your life,
you
you're
feed
telling. So if 100 people say I agree with you, and then you got to go, so what? Or 10,000 people go, it's true, Dale, you're right. The ETs are here, though. Then you get 1,000,000 people saying it's true, it's true. Then you got 1,000,000 people sitting in their living room doing nothing about any of it, except telling each other that it's happening, and everyone's agreeing with them. And then YouTube's giving them some money. And they're going to buy beer and hot dogs with their money, and they're paying their rent, and literally then they're trapped in that loop. I mean, even if you know it's true, you're not doing anything about it. What a beautiful trick. Even if you know about it, yeah, it's an amazing trick to keep you, so it doesn't matter how much you learn or how much you know, if you don't actually act on it, we've been tricked into thinking, I think talking is acting. It really isn't. Talking is just talking. It's not action. Everyone knows that New Year's resolutions, talking about them is not the same as, getting into shape or losing the weight or stopping smoking or whatever. It's just bullshit.
Talk is cheap, right? People are what they do, not what they say. It's easy to say stuff. I mean, how often do we see people tell us they're going to do this and they're going to change the world and they're going to do it, and nothing ever happens. So
nothing ever happens.
But that they say misery loves company, but it's almost like laziness loves company, right? Everyone's just supposed to sit around and talk and pretend they're doing stuff, and then when it doesn't work, that they just want to point the finger and blame. But I think the main thing is, people have forgotten they got choice. And they might think, and again, this is the AI, right? You've got a choice between Labor and Liberal. You've got a choice in government. You've got a choice. 36 flavors of milkshake, right? You've got whatever. That's your choice. But as far as choosing your reality and choosing something different, choosing to create something that you want, people don't think they got that choice. So yeah, I think it's coming back. I like that, that you put it out there, the infinite versus the finite. I think that's really what it is, right? Is some of this information just spirals into like a square. It doesn't go anywhere, but the other information is expansive and can go literally anywhere. So clearly one is creator God and one is not.
That goes into what I said about revelation too, because if that's a blueprint, that is a finite blueprint. That's why it has to stick to these rigid structures and protocols. And even when you look at Satanism too, when they're doing satanic rituals, it's a technology. That's what it is. It relies on rigidness of dates, times, chance, ritual, all this sort of stuff, right? So it's like they're just synced. They're synced to one version of AI, but it's almost they're like fully consumed by it. Whereas other people that are, not breaking life patterns and still doing the same shit all the time. They're still synced to the AI too, but not to the degree that there's obviously differing degrees of it. And then I would put religious evangelists and stuff like this in that category as well too, that they can't see beyond. They can't see beyond their finite understanding of reality. Because I think like the more obvious this revelation blueprint's going to play out, right? It's gonna be bizarre. It's gonna be a wild like next 5-10 years, because I think some of this stuff's gonna be so obvious. And again, I feel that that's the drawing of this AI God, because what does it do? It's like you present the population with a blueprint, the blueprint plays out, and nothing changes with the blueprint. Then the blueprint ultimately shows that God will appear, or the second coming, and then you re-justify the entire program, which was to present the savior and then for you to worship to yourself, right? To the false creator. It's like a master trick.
It is a master trick.
All right. Well, we've been going an hour, and we've called this AI to I am, and we've sort of spoken a lot about the AI. I'm just wondering if we should stop it here and do a part 2 on what's the I am and how do we get through to there. What do you guys
think? Good. I'm in.
You in, Dale? You good to come back next week and have another chat?
Yeah, give me 6:30 in the morning next time.
6:30? All right, we'll let you sleep in that bit more. All right, well, thank you both for joining me and everyone who's watching that. That's basically, I guess, our spin on what AI is. And we'll be back with part 2 on what you are, right? AI to I am.
Sounds good. I'm in. Dale, it was nice meeting you. Thanks so much for sharing.
You too. Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. I'll see you next time.
All right. Cheers, guys. Yeah, we'll talk soon. Have an awesome one.